ERPs, right? So we were talking earlier about the pain points around ERPs and selection of the ERPs, but that was based in a lot of people believe that they want or they need a new ERP, right? So we talked before about what the selection looks like, some pain points, some things to look out for. We're going to do the same thing for the implementation. So now we've gone through a rigorous selection process.
Hopefully.
Well, we helped them, so we know it will be.
Yes.
Ascent was involved.
But if you've already picked your ERP and you're picking up now, we'll go from there as well.
Fair enough.
We can still help you.
So we've gone through a selection process. So I want to talk through what are some pain points around that we've seen with our clients. We know what we experience. Avoidable pain points.
Or solvable.
For the implementation of to stand up a new ERP.
I'm thinking chronologically here, so I'm going to throw out the first one that's almost from day one. Is not misalignment of expectations about what it's going to take to be implemented. And that means resources. So having enough people available, whether that means hiring extra people to come in and do the day jobs while you have people do the system or vice versa. And then the expectations of what does it take? How long does it take to actually do this? I think that starts pretty much at the beginning.
So I think that's a great one because it's a common, it's underappreciated. I've got experience with 2 or 3 clients that's been, well, with the exception of one, I guess, where we talked that through and they really did those things. They brought in extra resources. Yeah. They shifted responsibilities temporarily. They, created some slack for that person to be able to have that extra 20 to 30% extra stuff to do. Maybe it's more sometimes.
And I think it's a 2-pronged thing that you just said. It's not just, are you solving the problem? Or are you getting your expectations up to par? This is what it's going to take. It's also, are you even asking yourself the question, what are my expectations? Like you have to be able to say, this is going to take twice as long and need more people. If you don't even acknowledge that it's a problem, then you're not doing anything to fix it, I guess, as I'm saying.
So speaking of the time thing, so I've had a couple of conversations with people over the years, and there's this idea of this is going to take 6 months, it's going to take 9 months, it's going to take 12, and everybody seems to want it faster, which I can respect. You don't want it to drag on longer than it should, but I found when you do the math. We just say, okay, well, let's just block it out. Let's say, all right, let's work backwards to, you want to go live on this date. As arbitrary as that is, let's just start there and work backwards for how long it takes to train people, how long it takes to go through the conference room pilot, how long it takes to configure and design everything. And then you start going down into the numbers of, well, that's 3 meetings a week, 2 meetings a week for 90 minutes at a time, or maybe 2 hours at a time. And all of a sudden it adds up. You're like, dang, that does take like 9 to 12 months.
And people are on vacation. And
there's vacations, of course. Yeah.
And something happens with your project.
Or you cross over. Let's say you don't want a January 1st go live. You're smart and you think, no, let's try beginning of Q2. Well, you're not going to get much done in December, January, February taxes, and then you're back at it in March. So there's all those factors.
And I think the other interesting part of that same question is not only do you have the people and the resources and the time, but are you aligned on expectations of how much work all of that is? Like what's the actual day-to-day like? What's the
template you're going to be filling out?
What's the template for data migration look like? How long does the conference room pilot going to take? How many people do you need for user acceptance testing? All of those things have to be kind of laid out at the beginning so you understand where the 9 months or 12 months or 15 months comes from.
I think another thing of the hidden time is if you think about it in terms of, well, I'm just going to show up. Okay, fine. 90 minutes, 2 times a week. Right? Okay, I got all that. It's the decision making that is not factored in. Like you're asked a question and like, well, how do you want it to go? Do you want it to go left or right? You want green or red? Shit, I'm not sure if I know the answer to that, or maybe I'm not even authorized to answer that question. I need to talk about that. We need to think about it.
I think that's a good analogy. It's not a lecture.
No.
It's school.
Yes.
You show up for the lesson, you have to decide how you're going to react, and then you have to kind of take a test at the end and see if
It's
it
a
works.
lab.
Yeah.
It's a lab. Yeah. It's not sit here and listen for 90 minutes twice a week and then go on with your life. There are actionable steps that have to happen in order for an ERP to work.
I find it's the decision making or the indecision of what's the best way to do this, and have to do some workshops thinking forward ahead of like, well, how do we really want to be doing this in 6, 9, 12 months?
Well, and you made a point in the previous podcast about this is not just saying, oh, well, I already know how to do it in my system, so I'll just do it the same way in the new system. It's not just recreating your current system. This is learning a new system.
Yeah,
so
it's entirely new logic.
It's
sometimes.
all new logic, which takes all new decisions. I think is your point.
Yeah, well, that kind of gets to that. Another one of those tripping points we mentioned in the last episode is that people try to recreate their past system here. That slows people down because it takes that time for the brain to go to shift gears and paradigm and go, oh no, that was my step 3 before, but we start there now. How is that possible?
Right. Or there's 15 steps before my step 3 that I call step 3.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
Exactly. I had some notes and I need my glasses to see them.
I've actually got another one if you want me to
Sure,
drop
go for
in.
it,
Another one that's kind of right in line, thinking about, chronologically, what are your expectations? I think the other thing to think about is where's the resistance to change gonna be?
Mm-hmm.
Who's gonna say, I don't want to do this. What we have is fine.
Hopefully that got handled in selection advisory.
If
You got the right people in the room.
If you
didn't-
brought those people into the room,
If
but
you didn't, this is where you're going to start first hearing resistance.
You're gonna hear it or you're gonna feel it in passive aggressive ways sometimes.
or you're going to see it for the first time because someone who said they were on board all of a sudden is now like, I don't have time for that meeting. I don't have to. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I don't have 8 extra hours a week to do this.
This is never going to work.
This is never going to work.
Or you're going to say, well, this is how it gets done in the new system. And they're going to say, well, that's not going to work because of X. And you're going to go, we never thought about X.
Yes.
We missed that in selection. We never thought about that.
Right.
Oh, that's a problem. And now you're like, oh, well, we can't go forward until we solve that.
That's the decision making or problem solving. Yeah. That happens. It absolutely happens.
Oh, sure.
And there's probably a solution that you just haven't come up with yet. Like that's not a brick wall when that happens. That's just like it's like a speed bump where you have to figure it out.
The thing is, I have been on a client engagement where we weren't part of the selection process, but we were helping with the implementation. And we bumped up against something. I don't know if I need to go into specifics, but like the executives there was an integration, and the integration did not support one of the key functions that they wanted. And then all of a sudden they went, well, we're not willing to budge on that. So that integration needs to get changed. And you're like, whoa, you want a report. And if you can't get that report, you're willing to break something else to get that report. That's really interesting. Now that was a kind of an extreme example, but they wanted.
They're bringing the mountain to Muhammad.
Probably not that extreme though. If you think about it, I bet that happens a lot.
What they wanted.
Oh, it does.
They wanted visibility into pending change order requests. And the integration is the change orders were all being done over this other system. Mm-hmm. And then only approved ones got pulled over to the ERP.
Sure.
And they said, if we can't see them in the ERP when they're in pending status, we don't want to use that system. Wow.
Okay.
And this was an executive level decision. And there was like 3 people who wanted that report, and they were willing to trash an entire system just to get that functionality in the ERP. I was like, wow, okay.
Interesting.
And no amount of reasoning was going to change that want. And so then you just have to go, okay, well, that's going to change your integration. It's going to change your ERP timeline.
Well, so you bring up a really good point there. So going back to a rigorous selection process and needs and wants analysis and all the things, the why,
right?
Expectations, all those things, they change.
Yeah.
Or you didn't even know, like you weren't conscious of it. You were asked 10,000 questions and then you see something, you don't know it till you see it or experience it.
Don't know what you don't know.
Hold on, wait a minute. I need to know that. I never even thought, like that's so normal to me that I never even thought, like it's breathing. Why would I have said to you, I need to see that report?
Right. It
Well,
happens.
but isn't that's kind of the same concept as there's a resistance to change. You need it. You think you need it. You have to have it until someone says you can't have it. In an ERP environment, you might not get it. You just might have to do it a different way. You have to be open to the change of the way the new system is going to give it to you. Now, there are rules that can't be broken. There are lines you cannot cross, but like in your example,
they could have just gone to the other system to pull their pending changeover.
Exactly.
They wanted it all in one system.
Right. So that
was the want, because they could have gotten the information a different way, and we could have even automated that reporting for them. They wanted it all in the ERP, so then we had to re-engineer process.
Yeah.
And it changed some of the technology integrations, which impacted the timeline.
It's all connected in ERPs. Let's face it.
I liked your idea of going chronologically. And one thing I kind of heard you say it, but I kind of didn't. I thought it'd be worth clarifying. A lot of people that go into an ERP change process, they're going to change their ERPs.
Yes.
They hear it's going to be 6 months. It's going to be 9 months of the implementation. If you're a contractor, you can think about, okay, it's a 9-month project. Well, what comes first? Well, we lay the foundation. We do underground work. We put a slab down, whatever it is. Then we go vertical. Then we start filling in from the bottom up. And then it's like rough-ins, and then it's trim and finish, and then there's paint, and then there's clean, and then a punch list. And we understand the sequence of things and about how long they take from experience. Construction companies are not software companies. Software is done differently than construction. Software is done, there's a few different methodologies for implementing software.
Right.
There's waterfall, there's agiles, there's sprints, there's all sorts of different things.
It's not linear.
It's not.
It's not linear.
And they don't have any concept about how much work is involved to get each one of these parts and pieces done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a real opportunity for a company that's going to change ERPs to take some time right in the beginning when they're sitting down to get started implementation. Usually the implementing company, whether it's an in-house software company or a third-party VAR, puts together some type of a schedule.
Yes.
And it's tied to, this is what happens here, and this is when we need this back by, and that cascades into the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. They don't take the time to digest and understand that schedule and get aligned on what the expectations are from the software company and from them. And I think that's a huge miss I have encountered over and over again, is the software company will give you their implementation plan, but as contractors, they don't understand that because it's not tied to necessarily like a physical build. It's a software build.
It's harder.
It's
different measurement, because there's a physical thing there. You can look and go, okay, well, the steel's up.
Right.
So I know where we are.
So I know what's next. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't.
But I can't go, how am I doing on my cost code, cost type alignment with my old system and the new system?
And the answer will be, well, green.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck does that mean? Well, you see?
Or we've seen this a few times. Sometimes in an implementation process, there's one project manager, let's call him or her that, and they take you through the whole process, right? Start to finish. In some that we've seen, you might have 3 different subject matter experts working in 3 different
payroll specialists,
right?
GL.
And you might have a call with the
posting.
payroll specialist for the payroll module on Monday, and you may have a call with
the project accounting specialist.
On Tuesday afternoon. And those things in your world are backwards, but to the implementer, they're like, well, this is when they're available, right?
Yeah,
so I think it's the point. That schedule is a living thing in implementation. It's not written in stone because it's not a chronological process.
And the other one that really jumped out at me that companies need to be thinking about, probably way back in selection, but at least during implementation, we talk about this a lot, is your go live strategy and your transactional history. You have to figure out early on, how much transactional history am I bringing from the old system into the new system? What does that really look like to get a system live? Are we doing a line in the sand? Are we doing parallel systems? Are we dovetailing off of one and into another? Are we going to run concurrent systems? Which one's going to become the source of truth? How much transactional volume are you going to be bouncing back and forth between systems? All of that is a huge conversation that a lot of times we walk in at implementation advisory and they've never even thought about it. They're like, oh, yeah, we never thought about that. Like, how far back do you want to go? Are we bringing in all transactional history? Are we cutting it off and bringing none of it? you have to, if you have ongoing projects, you have an open GL, like, all sorts of stuff. And then it ties into, don't even start with the CPAs and closing books for months and years and periods. And how do you reconcile everything? And have you even talked to your CPA about having to pull reports out of 2 sets of books?
I think
for your ends? And
I think what's important about that too is not just talking about it. Understanding there are multiple ways to do it. There's not one way. You don't have to do every bit of data over and start on January 1st, which is what we know a lot of people think. Mm-hmm. There's also the part about there's an education around that. What does it mean to only bring in my active projects? What does it mean to go live on April 1st? Sometimes you just need to ask those questions and have somebody with knowledge explain it to you.
Right.
It's not that you don't want to do it or you do want to do it. It's that I don't really understand what you're asking me or what you're telling me. I need a little more knowledge here about what it means to do A, B, and C. And that is very helpful to people to say, hey, just tell them. Just tell me what my options are and how they work.
Yeah.
And I won't be so afraid to maybe do the one that's, that I thought wasn't going to work. Well, it will.
And again, I think that's when it comes to implementation and risks and everything that we're talking about and pain points. It's the earlier you start that conversation and start wrapping your head around how you're going to get off of one system and onto another, the better. Because if you wait till the end, it's too late. Because you may have to reboot. You may have to start. You may have to take 3 steps back to be able to do that. I've seen it happen before. They're like, we have to map all of our old codes into new codes. And we have to make sure that every piece of data in the old system has a place to land in the new system. Are we going to be combining things? Are we splitting things apart in the future? In the new system is some of it because, for example, with QuickBooks doesn't do cost codes and cost types. It only does cost codes, items.
Yep.
So when you go to an ERP that has cost types, now you've got to consolidate or break apart different codes into different things for the project accounting to work the way you want it to. That's part of the reason you're probably going to a new ERP. So those types of conversations become so important to have in the beginning.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I actually had the same kind of point. Another one of my points was going to be, what is the data migration? What is your data migration protocol going to be? And what are the pain points of bringing your data over, right?
And the expense
and the time and the storage. There are some systems, I know one well, you buy a certain amount of storage, you buy a certain amount of space inside of your own system. And if you bring over more data than you bought, then now there's all of a sudden this expense. You need to buy a lot more space. Well, you didn't tell us that. That's going to double my price. Well, that's what it's going to be. And then there's data cleanup, right? What does data cleanup mean for people? How many people does it take to make sure? I think
do people even
do they know what that means? Right?
Data cleanup means.
Yeah.
Bringing in bad data, bringing in multiple vendors, bringing in, information that's incomplete, bringing in data that has the wrong date on it, bringing in duplicates, there's a million ways to think about it. But what data is, and if any of our listeners have heard this phrase, they'll recognize it, right? Garbage in, garbage out. It's a very famous phrase inside of accounting. It means anything you put in your system that's incorrect, bad, or underreported is going to
spit out.
It's going to spit out garbage because you put bad information in. So it's the same thing. That takes time and effort, and all those other things we're talking about. You have to budget as much time for data migration as you do for probably learning your system.
And building on your storage thing, the actual financial data is the easy part.
Yeah.
It's all the
Historical.
images. Think about when they use paperless scanning to process invoices. Are you going to try and bring all those image files, those PDFs over? We find this when people try and migrate project management systems. And it's like, well, it's not the financial data that's the big data suck. It's the photos.
Yeah.
It's the drawing.
500,000 photos.
It's the DWG and PDF files.
Yeah.
Which are important, but maybe all you need to,
all you need is legacy access to them, and you don't need to migrate them.
Ask someone, do I need these? Maybe
it's typically, we find it's cheaper to keep the legacy system running for a couple of years in the background for access than it is to migrate all that data somewhere. Just leave it where it is, and you need access to it for 3, 5, even 7 years. It's there if you need it. It'll save you a bunch of paper
and
a bunch of labor. So these are things that early on in implementation can wind up being showstoppers later on in implementation.
Yes.
moving into like mid-implementation,
Mhm.
my favorite one that we hear about a lot is scope creep. Oh, what do you mean that's not in the original project? We thought we covered that in demonstrations. We thought we bought that already.
Yes.
I know Zach on our team has a lot of work when he's working up with our ERP clients,
Yeah.
holding the vendors
Accountable.
to account
Yes.
for what they actually committed to, pointing out, tracking what was covered, what's included, when did we scope that out? This is part of selection advisory, is really scoping the project thoroughly. Because if you haven't documented all of that, the software engineers will often come back and go, oh, that's a customization. We have hours for that. There's an extra charge for that.
We, actual data, we saved a client $45,000 a couple of weeks ago doing exactly that.
Yeah, just holding them to their word.
They got a change order. Didn't know it was coming, which is also frustrating.
Yes.
But beyond that, Zach went to work and pulled the contract out and pulled the scope of work out and started going to work, and like, that's included, that's debatable. Okay, maybe.
Right.
And negotiated it down.
Another way to do that, we just said this earlier, if you have a schedule, whether you were given a schedule or whether you ask for a schedule, because you can ask for a schedule from a VAR or an implementer too, if they're not going to give you one, and say, I need to see how this is going. If you check that schedule, you can see what's on there and what's not. If something's missing on the schedule, it might not be part of your scope, or they might not think it's part of your scope. So you can catch it early, as opposed to, mid-implementation when you're like, I thought it was here.
So that scope of work, just for context sake for our listeners, our watchers, the scope of work isn't actually created at the beginning. It's actually, they go through a whole discovery cycle and then write a scope of work. It's not the contract you sign when you say, yes, I will pick software A. You do sign a contract.
That's your licensing.
That's your licensing agreement. That's got nothing to do with your scope of work.
Your implementation is typically hourly, and they scope it out.
They give you a big bucket of hours, and then they go to work. But
it's a budgetary.
But the most important thing about that is that scope of work. I mean, it takes a good
of the implementer.
Of the implementer.
Yeah,
it takes a good month, 6 weeks to put together every bit of that.
I think that's a really important point.
And it is an incredibly detailed document. It's usually in Excel. Sometimes it's in Word, but it's my advice is read that thing and just, if you think, add words. Just don't try to get cute with the language. Write exactly what you think you wanted. Use as basic first grade language you can possibly come up with, because it gets rid of the interpretation factor later.
I think it's a good point too, if we're going to continue clarifying things for people, if you use a third-party implementer, like we're talking about a VAR, which stands for value added reseller, for those of us who don't know, or those of anyone who didn't know, then it's two completely different things, right?
Yep.
It's what you're signing from the software, what you're actually buying is completely different than what you're paying the implementer to do for you. So that's one thing you're buying is software. One thing you're buying is a service.
Yes.
If it's through the company, if you're implementing through the software company, there may still be a separate agreement, or it could be part of it. Like, I think you're saying you have to really understand what you're paying for.
How many signatures am I going to be putting down?
Right. And what you're getting for that you're actually paying for.
Well, for our construction listeners, it's just the same as scoping out a subcontractor.
Yeah.
Very similar, except you don't know their product that well. You don't know what software implementation looks like. It's like buying.
It's just like when I used to scope you in electricity.
You buy security systems through me.
I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
You don't know if it's a security system that's going to work or not.
You asked you a bunch of dumb questions.
And then said, make sure I have a security system that doesn't, that works.
Yeah.
But you know why that's a great analogy too, based on what you guys are saying. The other reason that's a great analogy is because generally you have worked with a subcontractor that you hire before. There's only one time you've never worked with them before, is the first time you ever hire them. Yeah. Then after that, if you continue using them, they're
a known entity.
You know their product. Extent. You have probably never, like we said previously, if you've gone through a lot of these in your career, you're probably pretty good at it. But if this is not something you've done in your career, as a controller, as an accounting person,
as an IT
as
manager,
a CFO, as an IT manager, you don't know what you're getting because you've never worked with a VAR before to implement software, because it might be the first time you've ever done it.
Yeah. So another one on the scope of work, trying to do too much. So Another way of saying that is like go live is just a date. It's just a milestone. It's not the end, is another way of thinking about that. Go live is when you go live, you stand the system up and you're in it and you're using it. And I think a lot of people wrongly consider that like the finish line, like, okay, everything's finished.
That's the beginning of the next phase.
That's the beginning of the next phase. Yes, you're in the system now. So I go back to trying to do too much. When you're going through selection and you're going through your scope of work and you're like, okay, we need this implementation, we need that implementation, we don't need all this stuff. There's a real conversation that needs to be had about phasing the implementation. And everybody's like, I'm going to be exhausted. And like, well, yeah,
services versus nice to have.
The most complicated ERP I've ever done for a client here at Ascent, more than a few years ago now, was they talked themselves into, against our better judgment and against our advice, they talked themselves into going into a new ERP, a new payroll system, and a new project management platform at the same time, because they thought, well, if we're already going to be tired, we're already going to be exhausted, let's just do it all at once. And we
Band-Aid all at one time.
Just do it at once. And we said, that's a big lift.
It's a huge amount of change.
If you just went to the ERP first, you could go later, and they chose not to. And we did it, but it's brutal, it's complicated, it's tiring, it's stressful, all those things. So it's a good point.
Every time you do that, it adds more and more to the time.
Yes. Oh, it took forever.
It's longer before you can get live because you have to have these other systems stood up as well and integrated and tested before you can turn the whole thing on.
Yeah, people don't quite appreciate. That's a nuance that you just don't. That is exactly right. And it will extend the time. And furthermore, it's not a good idea to try to do all that at one time.
It's a lot.
It can be. It can be a good idea if your legacy systems don't talk to the new ERP and you've got to get it all done anyway. It's like, well, do we just, it's more of a personal.
It's a preference. I was going to say, some people like chocolate, some people like vanilla.
And some people like to swirl it all together.
And some people like a swirl. If you like a swirl, maybe that's your cup of tea to mix metaphors.
And appetite for change.
What's your appetite for change?
I have worked with, I'll say this, smaller organizations can typically be easier to work with and change things than larger organizations with more people who are more ingrained and more, like the processes are more people dependent.
Yes.
But the irony,
a smaller company, you're more agile.
Yeah, but the irony of that is, there's an irony to that, which is in a smaller company, there are fewer people to do the work that has to be done. In a larger organization, there's a lot more resistance to change sometimes, but now you have more people to do the work. So it's a very interesting dichotomy there of small and large company.
There is an ideal time to change all these systems. And it's somewhere, I would venture to say it's somewhere in that 10 to 25 million space is like the ideal time to get off of old systems and get into something.
To come into a bigger system.
Into a bigger system that you can grow into then. Because at that size, you can typically afford to hire a few people to help you through the process. And you have a small enough team that it's adaptable and agile and ready for change. But we've seen billion-dollar companies change ERPs as well. And they can take years to make that type of a change.
Yeah.
We have a friend that's going through one right now. They're entering the beginning of year 3 in their migration. And it's like they moved over core services, they moved over payroll, they moved over project accounting, and now they're getting into those 3rd, 4th, 5th level things like custom reporting and forecasting and all that stuff that they had to solve for with a temporary solution. Now they're finally getting it all back into the ERP. But when you're dealing with a massive organization, it can be a years-long process.
So as we advance through the timeline, I like that structure. So I'm thinking about you've gone through, you've designed the system, you've answered all the questions, you've done the thinking and the decision making and all that. A big piece of advice, I mentioned this in the last episode we talked about this, is the conference room pilot and training.
I knew that was what was coming next. It's one of our favorites.
Yeah.
Break the system.
Do not sleep on the CRP.
I love a CRP. I always have.
Do not sleep on it. And I say that so emphatically because I find that when the process is explained by the implementer, the VAR, whomever it happens to be, I think they kind of blow past it. It's just my take on it. They go, well, we're going to do this, and then there's this design, and that takes this long, and there's a CRP, and then the user acceptance training, and then you're done. I'm like, oh, that made it sound like there's all this stuff, and then there's these two little things at the end, and I think it's almost opposite that.
If I take a pessimistic stance, which I'm likely to do sometimes, even though I don't want to, but
brand.
It's on brand when it comes to the way I look at things, especially related to technology sometimes, because sometimes it's not the easiest thing. A pessimistic take on that is, well, the VAR doesn't really want you to break the system, because if you break the system and you point it out to them, it is their job to go back and make sure it works. So
at $200 an hour.
Yeah.
Well, it
They're
depends.
gonna
I mean,
they
if
try
it's
and
part of
charge
your,
you for things they break.
right, they try, but like, it is to your benefit, I would say. It is to your credit and your benefit as someone implementing a new software system to try to break the system that has been built for you by someone else, because you can't build your own system, right? Break it and have someone fix it for you before you go live. Because if you don't do that, you're out. You're done.
I have a great analogy. We fly all the time, right? And a lot of times there's a flight delay because they found something wrong with the plane. And I usually say, I'm glad they found it while we were still on the ground.
Yes.
That's the conference.
Even though it's annoying,
I'd rather
You'd
they do
still
that
rather.
than at 35,000 feet.
Yeah.
If you find out there's a problem with the wing flap at 35,000 feet or an engine, or I was on a plane recently where one of the lavs stopped working. It's like, well, I wish they had found that on the ground.
Yeah.
Because now I'm in a metal tube at 35,000 feet and with 185 people on a plane in one bathroom.
Yeah. So here's the thing on this, the CRPs and the UATs.
And there's a difference between those. You should probably explain the
okay.
difference between user acceptance, the conference room test and user acceptance testing.
So, well, first let me say that this is not universally true, but it's commonly true. The conference room pilot and user acceptance training are often not done by the VAR. They'll they have a train the trainer model, right? So they train your small group. Maybe it's 2 people, maybe it's 5, whatever it is. And the conference room pilot is generally company led. And so is user acceptance training. They're involved with that to a degree,
Is
but
it user acceptance training or user acceptance testing? Or are they interchangeable?
maybe they're interchangeable. I always call it training. Maybe it's testing.
for me, it's testing, because that's what makes them different. If you think about it, and it doesn't matter the order necessarily.
I find that hard. I disagree with that, but I know that
disagree
some
with
people
it too.
flip flop it. But
I wish they didn't. I wish it was a CRP first and then it was a UAT.
Yes.
Because that's how I learned how to do them, and I think that's the best way. But a CRP is for everybody to get together and start using the system and making sure things work.
This is your small group.
It's your small group in a sandbox. The UAT, which is the testing phase, is letting those future users of the system
Get in the system.
They've gone through everything. It works the way it's supposed to work. They are now going in and doing the things. If I'm an AP, specialist, then I'm doing the AP process. I've learned it. It works. I've signed off on it. Now I'm doing something. And at the end, I'm checking that off and said, I tested this module as me, the person using it. And I agree that it works.
So, but here's the important part about that. That's company led.
Yeah, right.
You're training your people.
It's the people who are using it.
And I think that's an oversight often. People make this assumption, well, you're going to train my people. You're going to train us how to use the system. No, you're going to know. You helped us, we'll design it and build it for you. And then the company trains their people. You had a small group of people help design and build it and get trained up. And commonly, at least what I've seen so far, and the several that I've done, that's how that's worked.
Yeah. And then you're going to either click a button or check a box or turn something green and say, I've tested this. It works. Mm-hmm. I know it works. And I'm, right.
Right.
I'm the company and I'm going to use it. And I know that, right.
But here's the key to that is developing use cases, something that your VAR or your implementation advisor, or not advisor, but the implementation company probably aren't going to do for you either. That's not in their scope of work.
They might.
Commonly,
they might not.
Commonly, it's not. These are all questions that have to, it's kind of goes back to scoping it out and figuring it out on the front end and what hours are in and what hours are not. But
yeah, I think that's your point. If it's not in the scope, they're not going to do it. If it is in the scope, they're going to do it. And if anyone learns something from this, we could say, if you want your VAR to do test cases for you at the point where you're writing or getting the scope from them, make sure it's in there. Right? Those are the kinds of things you might not know. You don't know what you don't know. Well, hopefully we can learn.
I've had feedback from a couple different VARs. They like us being involved as an advisor on the implementation very much as a third party for that exact reason. We keep them honest a little bit. We keep the client honest a little bit, and we keep, I don't know, we're like the umpire. We keep score, and helping the client build out those use cases and really help them understand how are we going to design a way to break this system? Let's like make it really work for us the way we told them we thought we wanted it. Now let's go do that. I think by that point, the clients, they're exhausted.
I was going to use a different analogy for that. I think we, as an advisory firm for ERP implementations, we are a backseat driver.
Yeah, okay.
Right. And think about it this way. The driver, which is the VAR, hates a backseat driver. Wow, you're so annoying. Stop telling me what to do. The passenger, who's the company who's going to use this thing, if the backseat driver keeps you from getting lost and driving around in circles and keeps you safe and on the road,
and pointing out the red lights in front of you,
then the passenger is like, great, because this.
Thank God you were here.
Thank God you're going through the windshield. Driver is crazy.
I'm going through the windshield if we make a mistake.
I like that analogy for that reason, because I think that's it, because it's helpful for people.
Yeah. It's also like a taxi cab, because the longer they keep you in the cab, the bigger the
more
bill
expensive it is. Yeah,
let's
get where you're going and get there. I was going to add one now that we're kind of, I think post-mid implementation, as we get into the end of this process, I think one of the biggest ones is burnout. I think we have to talk about burnout of staff.
Yes.
Staff burnout, whether you're the CFO, whether you're the IT director, whether you're the controller, whether you're
just
end
user.
If you're just an end user. Burnout is real in ERP implementation, and so is stress. I think you said stress. You're tired. You're tired of doing two jobs. You start thinking about, look, can I just go another place? I'm going to go find a job where they use my old system. I'm tired of doing this every day. And
God, did we choose the wrong? Did we do the right thing? Did we choose correctly?
I remember that sales guy that we talked to 10 months ago told me that my life is going to be easier. Yeah, and it's a year later, and my life I'm working twice as hard and my life is harder. And if you don't have a plan for that, whether it's fixing it before it is a problem or whether it's dealing with the burnout at the time that it starts to happen, So
we just went through this with a client just very recently. And that kind of gets me to I think a spin-off of your point. Executive leadership through this whole thing is a must. In this particular case, the executive saw it happening, is guiding his staff through it. He assigned people. He did a really good job of assigning people and gave them cover and helped them, not do their day job as much and do this because he knew it was important. And he saw that stress happening. He saw the burnout happening, and he would deal with it on most of the time, person to person, case by case basis. And every now and then he'd have a team meeting and go, okay, I know everybody's tired.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay. This too will pass, and all those things. Being the adult in the room, if you want to call it that, but just providing some executive leadership saying, this is good. It's going to be okay.
Acknowledgement matters, I think is what you're saying. Like acknowledging the pain, acknowledging the burnout, acknowledging I'm paying you for 40 hours. You're a salary person. Let's say I'm paying you for 40, but you're working 65. And you're probably going to work 65 if we're going to bring this thing over the
periods of time. Not the whole time, but periods of time.
Right.
Yeah.
So, thank you, or here's a plan, or look, come to me and tell me if you're the executive sponsor on this thing. Have people come to you and tell you the actual thing. You might not know. It could be a problem. Mm-hmm. It could be the standard way it's going to be, and there's a short time of pain for future gain, or something could be off, right? Or something could be wrong, or the VAR's not pulling their weight, or something. Like you have to know all those things. You have to know to look out for them.
Right. I think we covered this really well. Unless, do you guys have anything else that maybe
that was my last
they came up with?
Well, as we kind of touched on it briefly, but there's this. You have to come up with a plan to go live, to actually get the system stood up and cut over from one system to the other. And there's a few different ways we can share with people if they're interested. But let's talk about just for a minute what happens after you go live, because now you've actually got to use the system. You've got to run some payroll. You've got to do some monthly billings. You have to run a few AP check runs and pay vendors. And then you have to start producing financial reports and make sure they're accurate. So you need something to check them against. Not having a plan for how you're going to validate the system once it's live is another pitfall in implementations. Sure. You have to have a way to know that, that is the right the profit and loss statement and the balance sheet are accurate.
Yeah.
This is where people typically will run parallel systems for a month or two, despite what all the software companies tell you, which is no, just flip that one off and flip this one on. You need to have both of them flipped on. You need to run them in parallel, at least for a month, typically, I would say up to 90 days to validate things, because that's how you're going to catch the next wave of bugs that need to be fixed. The next thing of settings, we didn't even talk about permissions and access, but that's a whole nother conversation, is making sure that people have the right access to the system to get done what they want and need to get done, but not having permissions to things they shouldn't be able to see, as a quick way of saying it. But having a plan for how you're going to validate the system for the first, as I said, 60 to 90 days is pretty standard, until you feel comfortable turning the old system off, if you're going to turn it off, or at least make the other system the system of truth now.
Yeah.
And then you talked about it before, like what's a must-have to get the system live, and then what can we do later? What can we add on later? What can we build out, like custom reports and dashboards and all that stuff can come later. So understanding where there's more risk or where there's an opportunity to push things down the road, as opposed to we have to get this done before we go live, would be the last kind of pieces in my mind around this.
I agree. I think a big part of that is the budgeting side of it. Understanding, like I said, go live is the beginning of just the next phase. It's not the end, or it's a milestone in a larger, where we want to be.
It's close to the end.
It's a big milestone. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It's a big one, but well, this was really good. I appreciate you guys.
This is a fun topic.
Sharing our fun. We all have war stories about implementations, I think.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to share those with people.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I'm sure all the CFOs that listen to our podcast will enjoy this one. I don't know about the project managers and the estimators so much.
I doubt it.
But
well, I thank everybody for listening and or watching, and please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode.